Hello everybody, welcome back to the Wolverine Beat. Nick Baumgardner here with me, Brendan Quinn. For this week's edition, Michigan football coming off a big win over Oregon State, heading into a game against UNLV. Michigan basketball off in the shadows right now, waiting for another month or so until practice begins. But I guess let's talk a little bit about the week that was before jumping into what will be. Nice win by Michigan. I think it was kind of businesslike and take care of business and move on without any major calamities at this point.
Yeah, I mean it was different in a lot of ways in that I think we talked about it a little bit after the game that I couldn't remember, and you wrote about it with some numbers earlier in the week. The last time Michigan physically sort of manhandled a team or dominated a team or even really imposed its will at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the last time they did that or anything close to that to a Power 5 conference was, 2012, 2011, something like that? I mean,
before I got here.
Yeah, so really that was the best sort of wire-to-wire running game offensive line performance that I can recall since 2011, I would say, against a Power 5 team. They did some things against some weaker teams, obviously, and sometimes they didn't against some weaker teams. So that was the biggest
simpler times
takeaway.
Back there.
Simpler
2011 times in 2011.
That was a different world ago, yeah. I mean, that was also like, they had an All-American center, David Molk, Mike Schofield and Taylor Lewan were your tackles. Those were NFL players. Patrick Omame is an NFL player. He was a guard. I think Ricky Barnum played a little bit that year. Who was the other? Schofield was a guard. Oh, Mark Hughey was so he was a fifth-year senior. Really good group. It was a good offensive line. Last time they've had a good offensive line. And so, for them to respond immediately like this, that's a pretty good thing from week one to week two.
I thought it was one of those games where more bad things could happen than good things because they're playing such an overmatched opponent. All the hype of the game, the Harbaugh homecoming, packed house. After you remember back to the last few games of last year's home season when it was just a toxic air around the stadium. Fans were booing their own their own attendance announcements and things like that. It was just like
every play
it was just a bad vibe. So this was kind of just a game where I thought if they could just go in there and just win the game without anything bad happening, that's for as bad as it was. And as crazy as it might sound, that's like legitimate progress.
Oh, it's great progress, and it was in terms of it felt like one of those fresh start days for a lot of people. Fans, I think fans felt that way. Players
baseball
felt that
fans
way.
Coming back from the strike era.
Yeah, that might be pretty right on the money, but it sort of was in that it was a noon kick and all the students were there and everything else. So it was just a different vibe. The players even sort of said that this was a fresh start. Yeah, fresh start at home. They haven't forgotten the past, obviously, but. That was a feel to it, and then really the biggest thing was that's an identity. That's how Jim Harbaugh wants the team to play. They didn't do anything, especially this year, in the infancy of sort of his development of the program. They're not going to try. They would hope they wouldn't have to ask Jake Rudock to throw the ball 45 times a game. Yeah, they want him to, I think, to just manage the team, get them in and out of the huddle. Get them moving, make some throws on third down if he has to, which he did early in that game. He had the interception, of course. For the most part, I think, Harbaugh's going to take that performance from him, especially if the running game does its job. And you saw, Michigan running the bread and butter play in this offense, the power play. I mean, I think in the fourth quarter, I think I counted 11 different times they ran the same play or a variation of that, which, I mean, that's one of those plays. If it's blocked right, it's great because it's just it's man on man and you can't stop it. But they could have walked up to the line at the same time and told all front four of Oregon State's guys, we're running it right here. Yeah, I dare you to do something about it, and they couldn't. And that's how Harbaugh's teams have always played when they're at their best. That's how this team's going to play as well.
I mean, look at it this way. Last year with a running quarterback with Gardner who would go and he would put up 8 to 15 rushes per game. Even with now just a straight pocket passer. That game, 48 running plays by Michigan was more than they had in any game last year, even with a rushing quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, did they possess the ball long enough for that to happen?
That's a good point.
That's the other thing. They did have the 2 turnovers, but one was just the defense gets it right back. The other one was basically at a time where it was insignificant. So every other time, They're getting first downs.
Right.
They're moving the ball. They had a 7-something minute drive in the second quarter.
Sustained drives.
Yeah.
Third
Last year
quarter,
that
it was like a lunar eclipse.
Right. Third quarter, same thing. Had a big long drive in their fourth quarter. They had like a 13 or 14 play drive where all they did was run power. And so they were just possessing the ball, sustaining drives, keeping themselves in good spots, winning first down, winning second down, and having manageable third downs. And that, I mean, that sounds really simple and easy, but that's ultimately, how they're going to play. It's not, and with this team, we could speculate down the road if they get, more explosive athletes in here or something like that. Maybe you see something different.
Yeah.
But with this group, I think they've bought into the system. They know what they're trying to do. They have a running back in Davion Smith right now who's probably not going to bust off any 65-yard runs on you. But if Davion starts running 4 and then 5 and then 6, and all of a sudden in the third, fourth quarter, you saw it. They turned into 12 and 15. And he's bouncing off guys, and he's running through guys.
He secures the ball.
In the first quarter, it's he delivers a blow on a defender, and he falls forward for a yard or 2. Second quarter, that 2 becomes a 3. Third quarter, he's running through people. In the fourth quarter, I mean, he's just leaving a wake of bodies, and that's the credit to him this week too.
If they can establish this, and then the UNLV game that's coming up, and then the BYU game after that,
keep stacking.
If they can establish, that line really kind of gets unified in especially in the run game, and if they're going to be running it this much.
Yeah.
If suddenly Drake Johnson gradually comes back and gives you what I think will be a very different feel out of the backfield than Davion Smith.
You've got something there, yeah.
I think you do absolutely have something. Now, what that means for Ty Isaac and Derek Green.
Well, I mean, there's also a situation, too, with those
idea.
guys where you could say, you keep getting better, too, and if we want to run the ball 45 times, we're probably not going to give them all to one guy. We're probably not going to give them all to 2 guys.
Yeah.
He said at the beginning of the season, I want 3 guys that I can go with, which means I want a guy that's going to get 20 to 23, I want a guy that can give me 10, and I want a guy that can give me 7 or 8.
Yep.
And if they can find a threesome that can do that, moving forward, then and if the offensive line's, that's the thing though. The offensive line has to be, we saw it against the team. They pounded a team they were supposed to pound. They didn't have any issues, which is a win for them. And I don't want to downplay that at all because that was important because this team has struggled with that in the past. So they look very good. But now the question moves forward in that, and they admit this. Now you got to do it against a better team. You got BYU in 2 weeks. Maybe that's a test. Northwestern, their defense, maybe their defense is for real. Maybe that's a test. Before you get into the beef of the schedule where you got to play Michigan State, whose defense doesn't quite look like it was in the past, or doesn't look as nasty to me anyway as it did down the road. Ohio State, same thing. But in order to compete against those teams, the physical teams, Minnesota's,
Michigan State defensive line,
Penn State, great defense. I mean, Penn State's got its problems, but Penn State's defensive front is fantastic. Michigan State's defensive line's good too. But you got to prove it now against somebody that's not Oregon State. And struggled against Utah. Utah was pretty good up front.
Yeah. Now
that's the big test. Now is do it consistently, and can you do it against somebody who's good? Because that's the difference between exceeding expectation or just kind of finishing the year where we thought they would finish the year.
Right.
Have 7-5 in 4, which isn't anything to shake a stick at, I don't think. But if you want to go beyond that, your offensive line has to become, a weapon, so to speak, not just they're hanging in there and not falling apart.
Yeah, I would agree across the board. I think it's a matter of, like you said in the beginning of the year, of getting the cliche is the cliche.
Oh no.
We're just gonna ignore that happened and not restart this entire thing.
That was my fault, I think.
That was 100% your fault.
Sorry
Nick.
about that.
But yeah, I feel like in the beginning of the year, the idea of it's cliche, but week to week, just that there's actual progress, that there's actual things that you can circle, and saying, oh my goodness, from 3-4 weeks ago, they look like a different program where week to week you didn't know what was happening in years past, and that would be sometimes it would be really good out of nowhere. Devin Gardner or something would look amazing one game, and then 4 straight games
just fits and starts.
No idea.
All the peaks and valleys, as you say, whatever you want to call it.
Progress.
Keep going in a constant pace. I think that's.
Are we jumping into questions?
You got anything else you'd like to talk about?
No, I'm good. I'm good. So every week, Nick puts out a question on, or I guess request questions on Twitter. So if you want to be involved, next week and moving forward, find Nick or myself on Twitter. He's at Nick Baumgardner, and I am at BF Quinn.
How about we start out with a basketball question?
Basketball.
What do you think about that?
Oh my goodness.
Just throwing you everything you want here today.
It's The opener is on the 13th, November 13th.
So roughly 2 months.
About 2 months. So we're getting there, folks. Until
we'll start practicing in what? Well, October 15th.
Until
right? So
I'm
exactly
relevant. Yes.
So exactly a month away from practice. So,
Yeah.
basic question, which at this time of year, that's fine. CT on Twitter asks, "What's your best guess at the rotation this year?" Which could be interesting with
I think
as many guys as they have.
Definitely will be interesting. There's some crowded spots and some very established spots. So I think your top 3 are set. Now this is presuming that Zach Irvin is back
That's
and
tricky.
fully healthy from back surgery, which I don't think anyone would ever be presumptuous enough to say, no doubt about it, he'll be 100% fine. Back surgeries can be a little goofy, a little complicated. So, but in theory, if everyone's healthy, it'll be Derek Walton at the 1, obviously, Karis LeVert at the 2, Zach Irvin at the 3. I would expect Ricky Doyle to lock down that 5 spot. Last time I had a long conversation with John Beeline, he said he's hoping that in the preseason, when these guys are going to battle, and someone will lock it down so that those guys are going to see minutes.
Yeah.
Mark Donnell will see minutes in the early season. DJ Wilson will see
they
some
be valuable minutes
at the 5. That's a question. Moritz Wagner could sneak in and see some minutes at the 5. But he's hoping that somebody goes and wins the job. I think Ricky Doyle is by far the most likely candidate to do that. The biggest question's at the 4 spot. That's a crowded area that instead of just going through everyone and saying that what their attributes are, I'll just start off by saying I think Aubrey Dawkins will win the 4 spot in the preseason. I think for a guy who can shoot 44% on the threes, he's the most athletic guy on the team. I think he just brings so much to the table right now that it would be really difficult to keep him out of the starting lineup to start. Now that said, we have no idea what Duncan Robinson can do. If Duncan Robinson is as good of a shooter as they say he is, and as smart of a passer as they say he is, he could very well snag that 4 spot. Because one of the things about Aubrey Dawkins is I think he finished with 21 assists last year.
Yeah, that was a lagging part.
If he's not scoring or shooting, he was a
rebounds need to.
He was an inactive defensive rebounder. He was a moderate defender, and he didn't really bring you much in terms of moving the ball. If Duncan Robinson is a guy who you can play through a little bit, he could easily slide into that starting 4 spot, with Aubrey Dawkins then giving you the same spark off the bench that he had in that midseason role. By the end of the year, he was playing 33 minutes a game, so it was feast or famine. He would either take and make 5 of 6 threes or 5 of 8 threes or whatever, or he would go scoreless a lot of nights.
And if we've seen anything over the years with Beeline, it's that if you have situations like that where it's multiple guys and we have a question mark of who's going to get it there, who's going to get where, it's usually boils down to who does he trust on offense more than for most spots. The 5 might be a little bit different. For most spots, who does he trust when they have the ball in their hands? And we saw that a lot with, when Stu Douglas, for example, would play a lot. Stu could defend a bit, but for the most part, he was very responsible. The ball was in his hands, and Beeline trusted that and was like, I need him on the floor because our possessions are so important because we're never going, we're not going to be a team that just holds people to 40 points. It's not going to happen. So I think that, and that's why the Duncan Robinson thing is like it's interesting in that who do I trust more when I've got to make a play, or we can, who can create something other than just hit an open 3 in the corner.
Right, and I'm saying Aubrey Dawkins now because I'm having seen Aubrey Dawkins. I'm comfortable.
I think he's
saying
going to be a great player by the time it's all done.
He could be a possible star one day. But
a lot of talent.
Until I'm not just going to blindly say Duncan Robinson because people tell me from practice that he is a spectacular 3-point shooter and all these other things. Well,
Mark Donnell had a great practice season 2 years ago, and that didn't translate.
So once I see it, I'll be happy to say otherwise. Now, the other question is Cameron Chapman. Still the most highly touted guy coming out of that recruiting class going into last year. I think there is certainly talent there. He's still a crafty left-handed guy who can do a lot of things. But he needs to speed up his game, and he needs to not be lost on both ends. He needs to do a lot of different things. I would say if there's going to be a breakout guy that at the end of the year, a breakout star on the team or a breakout performer on the team, I'd say it's Cameron Chapman, and it's mainly because last year was so bad or so below expectations.
It was funny because he'd have these little moments, little pockets throughout the year that you were like, whoa, what was that? And then it would only be like one trip in a game, and then it would just never happen again, or it'd be 5 minutes, and then it would never happen again. But they did exist. We were like, all right.
I think it's in there. It's in there somewhere. It's a matter of if he figures it out now, if he figures it out a year or two from now, or if it happens at all. I guess rounding out the rotation, then we'll be back in the backcourt. Spike Albrecht's going to see a lot of minutes this year. I think they're going to play a lot of 2-point guard looks and maybe slide Karras down to the 3 and maybe Zach Irvin down to the 4 spot at times. They will play
and that goes
small.
back to who can I trust with the ball in their hands. Spike's probably number 1 on that list.
They're going to play small a lot. I think at times, having talked to the last conversation I had with Beeline, and this was only 2 weeks ago or so, they're going to be very
you might as well play small.
Very open with that. I think at times they might end up looking like an Atlantic 10 team out there, with a 6'6". 4 and Ricky Doyle, who's a generous 6'9" at the 5. They don't care as long as they're rebounding
to the Final Four
competitively. They're going to play the lineups that score. So Spike's going to see his time, and he's invaluable. I mean, he's a 5-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio. He's one of the best leaders in the country. What else can you ask? So you have that, and then foul trouble in other situations. Muhammad Ali Abdul-Rahman's still sitting there as a great guy.
Be interested to see how he develops year to year.
Maybe one of their best off the dribble guys get the ball to the basket. So maybe he's a good change of pace when the jumpers aren't falling and you need a different look. I think he gives them a nice change.
This is a good spot. This is a good time for Abdul-Rahman because there's a little bit. We've talked about this with football and competition. Now we're going to find out. Because I thought I was impressed with him last year when he was asked to do something in a pinch. But now you're a little bit lower on the old depth chart, and if you're going to get in, you've got to earn it. And not that he didn't earn his minutes last year, because he did. But now I think you're going to see, and Beeline can put him in there and say, okay, you got to really make me trust you to get on the floor, because that means I got to take Spike out or I got to take Derek out, or maybe both in some situation. I don't know, but you got to get ahead of those guys. How are you going to respond? And that's I think that'll be interesting because I think he seemed like a tough guy. I mean, a tough kid mentally to me, and he's not a lot of people talk about him. And I mean, I was really, and I understand why people spend a lot of time talking about Dawkins because he was so talented, but I don't know. There's something about Marr that
he's got it in.
He's got something there. I like him.
He's got it in him. And this is not. I don't think this is the most talented team John Beeline has coached. This is probably the deepest team that he's had at Michigan, and it's depth combined with veteran leadership, which gives it a very
you can withstand an injury if you need to in certain spots.
Pretty good makeup.
Well, how about that? All that basketball. Let's give them people what they want.
Finally, that's something I know. I kind of know what I'm talking about.
We'll go back to football here. Sadly for Brendan.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got a lot of Shane Morris questions. We talked a little bit about this the other day, so I'm not going to. I mean, this is a combo red shirt next season thing for sure. Well, Shane, this comes from Keith on Twitter. Will Shane Morris be faced with the exact same situation next year with John O'Corn's proven experience invaluable to the staff? And then again, we've had other people ask, is Morris going to redshirt? We covered the redshirt thing a little bit yesterday, and that it seems to me that this is basically just a wise decision on Harbaugh's part to, manage the roster in a logical manner. In that if a player has a year that he can bank, and you don't need him to burn it, and he's cool with it, then you try to bank it. I mean, that to me, that's just logic 101. Something the former staff really didn't do much of. So, do I think they'll redshirt him? I think that there's too many variables to make a prediction. Rudock could get hurt tomorrow, and that goes out the window. But if Rudock stays healthy and continues to be the obvious #1 quarterback, yeah, I think they probably redshirt him.
So you're saying going into the year, the plan was on their big roster board. It probably.
I think the plan was we got to find a starter.
It probably
and
did
then we'll
not
figure it out
have.
from there.
And even when he won the job, though, even when Rudock won the job, I don't think on the big board they then put a little special marker next to Shane Morris's name saying he's a red shirt.
No,
it's at this point there's no reason to burn it.
Right.
You don't just
lost the job.
You don't do it to do it.
Right.
You don't put it in to kneel the ball.
No, and you don't put them in if they're up. In my opinion, if they're up 60-0, then you don't put them in against UNLV in the second or third quarter or the third or fourth quarter either.
That'll be interesting.
Because if you are serious about this, which it sounds like he is, if there's no reason to do it, then don't do it.
Yeah.
And I understand that because again, you're still trying to find bodies at that spot. You're trying to find quarterbacks. People keep assuming that they've just given up on Shane. I don't think that's the case at all. And in terms of we can get into the O'Korn stuff next year, yeah, he will be faced with the same situation, and that he's going up against a guy who started a full season, has a full season of starts under his belt, who was the Rookie of the Year in the American Athletic Conference, started a partial part of his sophomore year, he's got way more experience. John O'Korn, before the season started, had more touchdowns, I believe, than anybody on this roster, including Jake Rudock. Or it was close, but I think it was more. It was like 36 or 37 combined. So, yeah, he's a player, and I think they expect a lot out of him. So if Shane Morris is going to win that job, yeah, he's going to have to make up more ground. But that said, I don't think they've given up on him. If they had given up on him, he would have taken the snaps last week, in my opinion. They would have said, we don't need your red shirt unless you're requesting us to give you a red shirt. But in that case, I don't understand that one either, because if you're requesting us to not play you, then we would request you to leave. So I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think they've given up on him. I think they think he has a future. I think they can use him down the road, but don't do it carelessly.
Yeah, you can request a red shirt without requesting to leave. It can be if you're not going to make him a starter. But if Rudock gets hurt, obviously, Shane.
I don't think he did that either. I think he's fully preparing every week to, if something happens and I got to go in, I got to go in. But at the same time, I think that's Harbaugh saying, hey, this guy's got an extra year that he hasn't used, that he get 5 to finish 4. Let's be smart about it.
And it's a totally different world now, where everyone is now pocketing that extra year because the graduate transfer is such a part of the fabric of the college game now that it's on the table for everyone.
And I think that, and I'm not. And again, we're not sitting here suggesting that Shane Morris is going to leave. Okay, that's not what we're doing. What we're saying is, and Harbaugh explained.
So don't write that in the comment section.
Well, Harbaugh explained in the offseason, or I think it was right before fall camp, his theory on the fifth year guys, and that's as much as it was, that's my decision on whether or not you are welcome back on this team. It's also, that's your year to do, if you've done everything, you've graduated and given the program for it, that's your year to do whatever it is you want to do. He said that the other way around with Rudock and Wayne Lyons and Lake O'Neal. They took 3 fifth-year transfers. He said he thinks that's a great idea because if a guy spent 4 years somewhere, got his degree, there's somewhere else maybe he wants to pursue a graduate degree and maybe get a change of scenery while he has it, you're more than free to do it. My understanding of that the whole time was Harbaugh wants to have, or he's trying to get guys in positions to where if you're a 5th-year guy and we can use you, then you're on the team. But if you're a 5th-year guy and I can save you that 5th year and maybe things didn't work out, I'd like you to have that year so that you can do with it whatever you choose. Beeline does this with basketball. It's the same thing in that when they redshirt guys in basketball, they're not redshirting them with the thought of they're never going to see that 5th year. It's maybe they'll see that 5th year, but I'd also like them to have that year for whatever they want the year for. And we've seen that with Bielfeldt, we saw that with John Horford, Blake McClymans, and so on and so forth. I think that Harbaugh's philosophy is sort of on the same wavelength, and I think that's not just the case with Shane Morris. I think that's the case with a lot of guys. Anybody who's got that, a year that they can save, I think they're going to try and save it because why wouldn't you? The former staff just didn't do it. So that's about all we got. Questions-wise, A lot of repeats this week. A lot of Shane Morris stuff. A lot of, Jake Rudock stuff, which, again, I mean, I'm not going to.
And yet people say you write about the quarterbacks too much.
Jake Rudock on. I mean, well, we get a lot of people that have asked whether or not he. Somebody asked me if he should be blamed for that fumble, and I mean, he was leveled by an unblocked defender. I don't really think that's his fault. Yeah, he'd like him to hang on to the ball there, but I mean, I can't kill the guy for that. Sure. The interception, again, I've said this a couple times already this week. The interception thing has to be cleaned up. It still to me seems like it's a bit of an anomaly in that I don't think that's his game. I think if you look at his long-term, resume, turning the ball over constantly has never been something he's done. It's 2 weeks. He's got 4 picks. Some of those picks weren't his fault. Some of them were. They got to stop either way because right now I'll chalk it up and say just one of those things that happened. But if we're sitting here talking about he had another one against UNLV, and it looked like his fault, then we are on a topic because now it's like, well, this is 3 weeks, and you haven't gotten it cleared up.
All right,
that's got to stop because when you get into Big Ten play and you're turning the ball over, you're losing games, especially on the road. So. Right now, I just, I thought he did everything they asked him to do, save for that one throw last week. There was one throw down the field to Jay Chesson that I thought it just seems to me he and Rudock and Chesson have a little bit of a, they need to get more on the same page.
Yeah, definitely.
The throw down the field to Darbo, first play of the game, Darbo was interfered with, it wasn't called, the ball was right in his hands. Darbo was basically tackled before the ball gets there. Should have been a completion, should have been about a 50-yard completion. Throw in the end zone, Darbo interfered with again, should have been a touchdown. So really, Jake Rudock was robbed of probably 65 yards in that game by officials not doing their job and somebody being interfered with. So,
and look,
I can't kill him. I thought he was better last week. I really did. And he gets out of the pocket well. He avoids sacks. Things keep moving forward. They can possess the ball for like 6 days. I mean, he has a lot to do with that.
It could very much improve. I think it will improve. If you watch anything, college, pros, whatever, these last 2 weeks, these things take time.
Yeah, of course.
There's
chemistry here.
Philly
There's
guy.
timing. We talked about with Devin last year. There was new guys that he had to create timing with. Now he never really had that chance because he never really seemed to ever have time. But again, Devin was a guy where we saw, hey, when he had timing with Jeremy Gallon, man, oh man, that was quite a combination. So it takes time for these guys, to develop something with these receivers. I think he's got something with Jake Butt, got a little something with Darbo. He's going to have to find that with other guys, and
it happens.
Give him a minute.
Those pain in the ass Philadelphia Eagles last night looked like a different team. First half to second half. First half literally looked like none of them had ever played together. The second half.
Well, they really haven't.
Second half looked like they were going to the Super Bowl, and it's a loss. So there's that.
One of the Sixers started up. You got a couple.
I think they already folded it for the year.
Yeah,
they're just waiting for whoever Kentucky puts out #1 overall.
Oh God. Joel Embiid's out for the year again, right?
Yes.
2 years in a row.
Quick feel on UNLV without giving away your prediction, because you guys have to wait until
I think
Thursday or Friday or whatever for that.
Another one of those games where, the best case scenario, obviously you get the win, but stack another positive day with your front five. Take care of the game. Don't allow it. Keep your intensity up. I don't know if the crowd's going to be as electric as it was last week. I'm sure it'll be a nice crowd, but you can't guarantee that. People expect this team to get rolled. So.
There was actually, and there will be a ticket story later this week. But in terms of the crowd, recent conversation with ticket officials from U of M. Less tickets available, or fewer tickets available for
this was a cheaper
UNLV than BYU.
And this was a cheaper.
As of last Friday, there was about 1,500 tickets available for BYU. It's one of the only, I think it might be the only game with an actual number of pairs as opposed to scattered singles.
I can't remember the pricing structure. This might have been the cheapest game. It might have been more affordable.
It might have been in every ticket package that they offered, or whatever the deal is.
So maybe it'll be a great crowd.
There wasn't much available for this game. So now how many people are in
there?
That said, and all
it's
that.
Still one of those things where are people going to take a little more time to get in to the stadium?
No, this is the season ticket holder. This is your give the ticket to the neighbor game
and see what happens. Yeah. So ultimately, the idea there is be a mature football team.
Yeah.
Do what you're supposed to do, which we've in the past, and also you're coming off a really nice win. Don't allow that to just to train wreck you. We've seen that over the years with this team. They're saying they're a different team, and now you got to prove it, because I can go back on a number of occasions. Akron they were favored by 35.5 against Akron. They'd beaten Notre Dame the week before and looked amazing doing it, and came out and just probably should have lost here to Akron. So it's happened before. Don't allow yourself to get into that trap. They look like a more disciplined team to me in terms of mental makeup, in terms of mental toughness, those types of things. Go prove it, and that's what I would look for this week in terms of, be businesslike, show your sort of mental fortitude that you've worked on so hard.
And I'd like to see them maybe in terms of that step and improvement. I think they win pretty handily, obviously, probably right around that spread number, even though it's a big number. I think it's going to be around there.
Tough bet.
I was thinking 24. So if I had any money,
touchdowns,
had any money, I'd probably put it on the.
Okay.
I'd probably take UNLV, but the improvement that I think you could see, something that you might go into the game thinking about, is it's easy to forget. Middle to the end of that first quarter against Oregon State, people were kind of looking at each other and saying, "Uh-oh."
Offense wasn't really doing much.
Offense wasn't doing anything. The first drive, Oregon State went and just put it right down their throats.
Sure.
For a team when you are heavily favored, come out with a little.
Go out and break their will. That's what this is.
With a little more edge to them than I think they had last week. And now last week was different. It was first game, butterflies, all that stuff.
Not very good, but
but I think this week you want to come out and going after throats
Well, this is a
ended
team,
early.
you know, you look at them and they're a wounded team. You know, that we don't know what the quarterback situation is. Either way, it looks like it's a mess.
Yeah.
They got a first-year coach who was coaching a high school team last year, who I believe had more money
Unbelievable.
than UNLV does, which is one of the all-time. I couldn't find. I was looking yesterday for Tony Sanchez's salary because it was so funny because Harbaugh had said, you know, Harbaugh apparently is a fan of this guy.
Yes.
Never met him, doesn't know him from a can of paint, but likes him, likes his attitude and his demeanor and these types of things. I think he likes his offense too. He likes how he coaches. But he said something along the lines of like, you know, these high school coaches, they don't get paid the big bucks. You know, they got to take the long way. And I'm just like, Tony Sanchez, I think, was living pretty okay at Bishop Gorman, because if you remember, and so, this is the trivia for anybody who pays attention to Michigan's future opponents, he almost turned them down.
He almost
Tony
turned down
Sanchez
UNLV?
almost turned them down. And I could be wrong on this, but I would have to go back and look. And if I'm wrong, somebody call me up. But I seem to recall that there was a minute there where he was like, I don't know. And they were like, come on, man. I think, you know, I'm almost positive I remember that happening, where it was like, it took longer than it should have for for those two to come together. Because he had a great setup at Bishop Gorman.
been there
I mean, that place
11
was a
years.
powerhouse.
Yeah.
I think they raised like $90 million a couple years
insane.
ago.
That's
for the
gross.
football program. I mean, they were loaded.
What, they got slots in the
And
in the
I mean,
concourse?
all these like sports heroes and legends had brought their play. I think he was coaching Snoop Dogg's son last year. He was coaching who was the other? There was somebody else, like a big star.
Nelly? Was
No,
it
but it
Nelly?
was like a big star's son. I can't remember now. Anyway, he was like a shooter in Vegas. He knew all these people and everything else. Had a great job. But now he's here, and I think, you know, that's, if it works, he'll be the first high school coach that I can think of that's ever gone from high school to college immediately as a head coach and made it work.
If it works, it'd be the first time
be
anyone
amazing.
has made it work at UNLV. I mean, it is a
Probably, yeah, for the most part.
I mean, that and some tax codes are a national embarrassment. I'd say.
Well, more power to him. He's got a fan in
Yeah.
Harbaugh. You know, we'll see if Harbaugh gives him a better handshake or if gives him a word of encouragement, whatever it is. So he seems to like him. I guess we'll find out. Find out what the buzz is about Tony Sanchez and the Rebels.
We'll see. We'll see. I wonder. We have to figure out what league he was in and get some of those coaches' names from that.
Bishop Gorman League?
The Bishop Gorman.
They were like
League.
100-0. I mean, they never lost.
I don't know if he's run into.
They were just dominating people.
the
Snoop
hype-
Dogg was
the
in
hype of
Snoop
Harbaugh,
Dogg
yeah.
was a booster. His son was
That's next level,
on the
man.
team.
That's next
And there's
level.
another guy in there. I'm just blanking on the name. Maybe it was like David Robinson or something like that. I don't know. Some basketball player. I think his son was also on the team. So intense stuff, like big time stuff.
Maybe maybe if it doesn't work out with Harbaugh, they just call up the guy from Pioneer or something like that.
No, it's not the same thing. No, this is
okay.
not. This is a high school bordering on a college, bordering
Crazy.
on just a football team. So
Crazy. All right, wrap it up.
that's all I got.
You got the well, you can do the send off this week.
Okay, sounds good. Next time we'll be on the video, I guess, will be after Saturday's game. We'll have the live chat starting at, 10 a.m. on kick at noon on Saturday, so put it up 10 a.m.
10 a.m. and then the
We'll
live
be in there
chat.
to chat at 10 a.m. from the stadium, and then we'll reconvene afterward to talk Michigan-UNLV. That's all we got this week. We'll be back next week again. If you got any questions, reach us out on Twitter, send an email, whatever you want to do. For Brendan, I'm Nick. We'll talk to you guys later.